I mean, I thought the film was really good and really very, very sad, which sounds like a sort of facile thing to say, but it's, it is a tragic story, and what the film manages to do is to tell that story in a way which is intelligent and engrossing and just, unutterably sad, as indeed it should be. I think that Kapadia has a real talent for a particular kind of documentary filmmaking. In the case of Senna, the genius of it was to take a subject about which I had no interest and about which, as he said himself, he wasn't an insider, and to tell that story in a way which really made you engage with the characters, really made you understood the world. And I think that you can't understate how important it is that he does this by using archive footage. In the case of Amy, a wealth of archive footage, television footage, mobile phone footage, news footage, and then doing the interviews as if they were radio interviews, as if they were a radio documentary. He's talked about dimming the lights in the rooms he was doing it in order to create an atmosphere in which people felt they can talk. And certainly it does seem to reap rewards. There is something about talking to somebody with a microphone, not with a camera. There is something about a camera which changes the nature of an interview. And one of the really smart things about what Asif Kapadia is doing is managing to tell a true story in a way which is dramatic because it's to do with the editing of images, and incidentally, an absolutely brilliantly edited collage of images, of stills, moving pictures. I mean, I really take my hat off to the editors, because this is an extraordinary piece of editing work. I mean, telling the story through extant footage is very, very hard, and they have done it brilliantly, as indeed they did with Senna. But also there is a truth involved in the interview process that I believe in. Now, I think it's also a very good device to have built the narrative essentially around the songs, to have said, well, look, let's look at the lyrics, to construct the lyrics in a way. There is a level of artifice involved in this, obviously, to kind of create the illusion of a single coherent diary entry, essentially, through the lyrics. But the lyrics appear on screen as we hear some of the songs, and we hear various versions of them. Sometimes we hear Amy Winehouse singing them, as she's recording. Sometimes we hear live performances. But the songs are sort of highlighted on the screen as if the narration becomes a visual thing which is floating in front of you. And I think that really does work, giving the story a backbone. I also don't think that the film is finger pointing, or I don't think it's judgmental, but I think it's crucial that it doesn't back away from raising, if not answering, questions about how things ended so badly. You come out of it with a sense that it was a real songwriting talent. I mean, Asif has said himself that the songwriting was really the kind of key for him, and I think it is. I mean, you really come out of it sense that that's somebody who is writing beyond their years. An old song in a young body as opposed to soul. You also get the sense that the music. The music does transcend, and the music will live on for a very good reason. And underneath all this just sense of unutterable sadness that the story goes the way it does. I mean, you talk to Asif Kapadia about shying away from that sense of saying this can only end one way. I mean, we all know what the ending is, but that's not the whole story. So I think it's a really very moving piece of work. There were a couple of times that I looked away. There were a couple of times because one of the things that the film does is it moves from footage which is taken consensually, video, phone footage, friends footage of her talking knowingly to cameras, to this barrage of paparazzi intrusion, which is really very, very hard to look at. And with more than one occasion, I found myself looking away from the screen. I also think it raises the issue of the way in which we laugh at these things at the time, that perhaps the world is changing. Perhaps people are starting to realise that comedians, laughing at this kind of stuff, but people actually going through proper, genuine, breakdowns, crises. It's not funny. Anyway, I thought that it was a very fine piece of work. It was heartbreaking. I thought it was genuinely heartbreaking. Look, and in fact, even in the office, we've been talking about it this morning, and I think we've all had exactly the same feeling about it. Now, this caught my eye because when I was on the radio doing the film review show on 5 Live, which I do with Simon Mayer, somebody wrote in and said, can I take a 6-year-old to Jurassic World? And I said, well, really, no. 10 seconds into the film, literally 10 seconds into the film, I leaned to James King and I broke the code of conduct. I whispered to him, I hate this film. I just, all my alarm bells went off and I thought, it's okay, but maybe it will settle down. But no, it didn't.